there. I hope everyone is good and you found the previous videos helpful. Please do like and subscribe, and any feedback would be amazing. Now, what I want to talk about today is how to get on to your PhD program and the process and the logistics involved. So lots of people sometimes reach out and say, I'd love to talk to you about your PhD, and they may not necessarily be interested in what I'm actually doing, but more the process of how did you decide to do this and how did you get onto a program and how are you doing it. And one thing before I started is I did reach out to other nurses who were doing their PhD or who had finished to talk to them and ask more about the process. And that's really, really important, because ultimately what a Doctor of Philosophy, a PhD is it's an independent research project that you, the student, will lead. So you will become an expert within the topic of your PhD. So whatever that is, you will know all the research in that area, but you'll also do your own study and contribute to the body of knowledge on that topic. So you have to pick something that you're passionate about, something that you're really interested in, and have a reason of why you want to do it, okay? And that will be kind of your core grounding principle as you go through the process. The other thing is, why do you want to do it, okay? So as more nurses do their master's degree, it's very common now for nurses to have finished their degree, then in their career they're doing a master's degree to specialise in their subject area. And by very nature of that, you then have nurses who want to continue on and study at PhD level, which is amazing, or your job might require it. So nurse consultant jobs often have a criteria that you must do your PhD, so contribute to the research, or if you work in education, academia, you would need to do your PhD to progress in terms of professorship or associate professor. So that's the reason why you would need to do it. Also, then you might want to do it for personal reasons. You might want to advance your learning, and you might want to do it in terms to go for a job that would help you get that job if you have your PhD done. So figuring out your reasoning why you want to do it. And then sometimes people have personal ambitions. So you have nurses who, I know some nurses who work in critical care and they're so passionate about the cardiac care unit, so all cardiac intensive care nursing, and they've done their PhD within that subject. They're working clinically. They're not a nurse consultant, but it may open the door for them to do that in the future. But they're very happy working on the unit and having that knowledge and professionalism from the PhD and bringing it to their job. So that personal motivation for enhancing your career with what you're doing right now could be a reason as well. So many different reasons why. But you need to have a reason why, and that needs to carry you through of why you want to do it. And the next thing is picking a topic that you want to do, okay? So it may be the area you work in, it may be something you were really passionate about in your nurse training or something like that, but it's very important that you're really interested in this topic. Now, if you don't know what you want to do, what you can do is find a PhD. It's a website, you can go on there and look at fully funded PhDs that would pay for your fees and give you a nominal salary to study for 3 years. And that is an option for some people if you can do it. If you have more responsibilities or you have to protect your income, you can go for a fully funded scholarship. They're quite competitive, but they do exist, and there's no reason not to go for them. Lots of nurses get them, and basically what that means is they would cover your salary, and you might have to work in your current job 1 day a week, but the rest of the time you would work on your PhD, and then you've got deadlines to meet as part of that funding agreement, but you're still doing a PhD. So you can do a PhD funded or unfunded or partial funding, okay? And you have to find out first what's feasible for you. So you might know straight away you would need to go for fully funded, so that would be your option. Or partial funding, you might get partial funding from your employer, or it could be that your employer would pay your fees, but you may not get full study leave, so you might get 5 study days a year or something and then have to do it in your own time. That I think would be very, very difficult, but not impossible, depending on your personal circumstances. I what did I do? I was working full time. I started, and then I had a child, and it just was all too much. So I've taken a career break, and now I'm focusing on the PhD, doing that part-time as well as my mother responsibilities. So you have to kind of pivot, a little bit. Now, if I'd done this prior to having children, I probably would have been able to do it with working full-time or going down to 4 days a week. I probably would have been able to do that, but it's very much depending on your circumstances and what's happening in your life outside it. And then 3 years or 4 years, if you're going to do it full-time, goes very quickly. So you could see what you could do in that time to make it feasible to finish it. So there's so many different logistics, but it's very much you have to analyze your life and see what's happening and where you can fit in the time. Have you got your employer's support? I think it would be very difficult, probably near impossible, to do it without having some funding or having time to do it. So your employer's support either through funding or through time off to study. Because lots of nurses end up doing master's modules as part of their degree where they'll get their fees paid, but they'll have to study in their own time. And that's something that's just quite common in nursing, not necessarily other professions. But with the PhD, it's a lot more intense than a master's degree, and you don't have the same deadlines, or it's not like you have, 5,000 word assignment to do each module and then you can pass that. There's all different things going on with a PhD, very much like project management, and you need bundles of self-motivation, and you need to have really good supervisors to check in with you and you to check in with them to make sure you're on track, okay? So all those kind of key bits are really important, and I think your supervisors, you can be picky with this. You have to find people that you're going to work well with, and you can speak to students who have those current supervisors and get their advice on how they work and the feedback from them, and people who are subject experts within your area, so within your type of research and the subject specialty as well. That's really important. So what my biggest advice would be, if you're a nurse wanting to do a PhD, is you have to take ownership of this, and you can afford to be choosy with what you want to study, how you want to do it, and who you're going to get to help you, okay? So that's where it's different from a master's. Whereas a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, you're entering into a program and you're kind of brought along on the journey and you've got a lot of support. Whereas with a PhD, you're driving the boat, so you can really take your time to find out what you want to study and who's going to help you along the journey. So that is a bit of a switch, okay? And then you need to find a topic, look at supervisors. So it's not necessarily the uni you're going to do the PhD, it's where the supervisors can be. And the thing with the now is everything's online. So you have people studying at unis outside of their country, and then everything is done through online meetings. So that opens up the world and opens up the supervisors. So especially in nursing, we have amazing research in Australia, in America, in Ireland, in England, all over the world, I'm focused on English speaking countries. So you can contact people, subject experts of your subjects, and ask them about, are they taking on PhD students? Because you could be enrolled in a local uni to you, but your supervisors, one of them would be at that uni, but another one could be overseas, and lots of people do that. So you really have to do the groundwork on that. So there's about a year, I would say a year preparation before you can start. And most unis won't accept you until you have a proposal and it's a solid plan. So you have a rough idea of what you're going to do. So prior to even starting the PhD, you need to know about your methodologies and your methods that you would do. Now they may change slightly, but you kind of have to have a rough idea. So that's the groundwork. So before you enter a program, there's a lot of things that you need to get in place, and also they would want to see your academic writing style, because it would be expected that you can write really well academically, because you also would need to publish while you do your PhD, or some people publish immediately when they finish. But publishing as you go along is a really good way to get feedback, and it will help you when it comes to doing your Viva at the end, to show that you've got papers, they've been peer reviewed, and it helps build your profile. So that's kind of the prep up to the point. So I'm going to leave it there. Any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I'll do another video about the actual logistics once you get onto a program and what's involved with a PhD. Bye.